Coming up on today's episode, I jump ship and step aboard this Jeanneau Odyssey 45 belonging to my good buddy Mike. We battle our way up the Bristol Channel, leaving behind the brown water of Cardiff, exchanging it for the blue water of Oxwhich Bay. And today we'll share with you the adventure, the journey and the challenges that we had along the way.
Oh! There's a mackerel!
I hope you enjoyed the video just as much as I enjoyed making it, and I hope you like the video, and welcome if you end up subscribing. So we're casting off. The first stop is the Cardiff barrage locks, which isn't just an engineering marvel. The bay used to dry out, and in 1994 they began construction of the locks, which spans 1.1 kilometers, and it was completed in 1999. Each lock is 40 meters long, and out of the 3 locks, 2 of them are 8 meters wide and the other one is 10.5 meters wide. The best time to go if you're heading towards Swansea or Oxwhich Bay is 2 hours before high tide, and you hug the coast where you get the eddies, which gives you a little push along the coast. The Bristol Channel has the second largest tidal range in the world, and the tide range can exceed 14 meters in some places, and the tidal currents can sometimes exceed 10 kilometers an hour. Probably one of the hardest parts of having a boat is either casting off or mooring up, and here I missed a cleat not once but twice, but luckily we had crew on board to catch the rope and tie us along. I definitely need practice lassoing, as you can see, but I usually use a little gadget called the dock stick. It's a PVC tube which you tie a mooring line to using a bowline, and then you attach the dock stick to your boat hook, and then basically it will release when you wave it over one of the cleats. We spent 10 minutes in the locks as it raised the water levels to match that of the Bristol Channel. The gates opened and away we went. On the channel side of the locks you do have a basin area, so if the locks aren't open you can drift around inside. This area does dry out and there is nowhere to tie onto. The tide is a huge factor here, where you have a 6-hour gap between high and low tide. If you ever wonder why we talk about the weather so much in the UK, it's because sometimes you have 4 seasons in one day, and you'll see throughout the video how dynamic the weather can be. As we were passing Penarth Pier, it was time to get the sails out. The wind was coming in a similar direction to where we were going, and we were trying to sail on a closed haul. For fellow sailors out there and keen-eyed viewers, you may notice Mike was ratcheting the winch, which is technically not really what you're meant to do. You're meant to do it in a continuous motion, however the spray hood does get in the way of the handle. We were motor sailing at 6 knots, and we were sharing with the crew how you get to Swansea and the water starts to turn blue and the chance of seeing dolphins. As we rounded off Lavernock Point, we put the sail away as the wind was coming directly on the nose and the sea started to get choppy. It was full steam ahead on the engines as we bounced off the waves. It gets a little rough in the area just because of the geography with the tides, the currents and the wind coming around the land. As we make it around Lavernock Point, you come across Barry, which is famous for the TV show Gavin and Stacey, starring James Corden, who went on to host the late night show. With the wind on the nose, the engine running and the auto helm keeping us on course, there's nothing to do than sit back, relax and enjoy the ride. We didn't see any dolphins this time, but it was nice to watch the water go from brown to blue. Just under 8 hours later, we made our destination. First point of call is picking out a good anchoring spot. Captain Mike has been here plenty of times. I've been on my boat and I've been on another friend's boat, so it's my 3rd time at the anchorage. It was time to deploy the anchor, so both myself and Mike have upgraded to the Rocknet anchor. Very good holding, great design, and the reason Mike's got his because he lost his original anchor in Lundy, and for myself I actually crashed my boat into the wall after the fuel filter got plugged up and the engine cut out, so I actually damaged the anchor on mine, so I ended up replacing it with the Rocknet anchor, which is an upgrade that I wanted to do anyway. With the anchor set, I definitely thought it was beer time. However, the fishing rods came out. So what are we doing here?
We are pretending like we know what we do in fishing.
Oh, I should record Mike really, because he knows.
Yes, you probably should record Mike, because, well, you might get an injury with me at the very least.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you for that.
Okay, so then we do that, take it down, and then we lock our wheel in like that to stop it from coming anymore. And then what we do is we put a weight on the end of this,
Do you need bait on them?
Nope.
No.
These
are running lures. So the idea is to throw this out and keep reeling it in, so they pretend like they're a fish move through the sea. With baited ones, you can throw it out and just leave it. But these are running lures, so cast it out and then bring it back in and make it look like it's a tasty fish. Yeah. So you've got to keep casting.
Your work.
What's that?
You want to send this into your work? So you may recognise the background as the thumbnail for the boat tour video for this ferry boat. So he's been kind enough to allow me to step on board and go cruising with him. Last time we came here, I came on my boat, but I'm having problems with the anchor. So the anchor chain is jamming as I'm kind of trying to deploy it, and the actual housing for the windlass is moving around as well. So last time I went fishing was many years ago, over 10 years ago, and it was a trip in Turkey, and it was deep sea fishing. It was €20, and the fishing rod was like this big, and out of all the boats I caught one, and the fish was about this big. So feeling a little bit ambitious to get one. So apparently there's mackerel here, so hopefully we can catch some dinner. Yeah, let's go. At the back of the boat we had Bethan and Neil on the fishing rods. They're a lovely couple, very good friends of mine. My last video was a product review video with a 400 watt solar panel, and it's actually Neil's. He was kind enough to lend it to me to review for my Blue Yeti power station. Mike also has one, which you'll see shortly, but what have you? So it's the next day and we're fishing outside in the morning, but we've got the coffee made by the Sage Barista Bambino, and we're apparently using the AFERIY all-in-one power station. So I'm going to review this. This is one from my good buddy Mike, which we're going to be checking out next time. We're going to be charging it up today using the fold-out solar panel that we reviewed last time. But yeah, so far it's been so good. Products in this video, everybody paid full retail price for them. So the solar panel was £359 from Amazon, and the AFERIY power station was £735. That's the summer 2025 prices, and they've both been working very well. You can see on screen how much the solar's pulling in on this overcast day. Both Neil and Mike own the same pieces of kit, so they have one each. It's allowed the girls to use the hairdryer and me to use the coffee machine and charge all the gear. Links in the description below if you want to have a look. Back to fishing.
There's a mackerel! Yeah!
Can you get me the bucket, please?
Where's the bucket? Where's the fucking back?
Oh yeah.
Oh, get the other fucking reel down. There's mackerel about.
Yes! Yes!
You seem pretty happy there, Mike.
I'm eating well today.
Saturday brunch time, it's time to head to the beach. One of the trickiest parts of getting to shore is getting the outboard engine onto the dinghy. In a tricky spot and weighing 25 kilograms, the last thing you want to do is drop this thing into the water, as it costs around $1,000. The good thing with crew is we all help each other out. With the three of us, we had somebody to pass the engine down from the boat into the dinghy, we had somebody to hold the dinghy in place, and then we had somebody in the dinghy to put the outboard on. Petrol in, and a few tugs later and it's away we go. The first ones to the beach was me and Bethan, while Neil ended up going back for the others. We took the barbecue equipment, and of course the first thing we did is use our hunter-gathering skills, and I managed to forage up some berries and cherries. Flavoured cider. We arrived on dinghy on a low tide, which means we had to bring all of the stuff to the top of the beach. It's a pretty far walk. In the centre of your screen you can see the water. In just a few hours it would be next to where we're setting up the barbecue. As we were waiting for the others to join us on shore, it was time to collect a few sticks and start setting up the barbecue ready for cooking. In the distance I could see the others arriving on the dinghy.
There's a bit that they don't tell you on YouTube and all the fancy channels. You come in from the boat and we're fucking soaking. How about you, Scott? How do you feel?
Pretty dry. Okay, there we go.
I'll do it next and I'll do it.
With the gear on shore, it's time to set up the barbecue, with Captain Mike doing his selfies. The captain was the only one who managed to catch a fish, and he was kind enough to share it out, and it was absolutely delicious. Neil volunteered to be in charge of the barbecue, and he did an absolutely wonderful job. With the barbecue done, it's prime time drinking time. There's a lot of music or wind noise in this video, which is why I've done so many voiceovers. Captain Mike was the first in the water, and he managed to convince me and Neil to jump in with him. In less than 6 hours, you can see how fast the tide has risen. What was really surprising was how warm the water was. The boys had packed the swimming trunks, unlike the ladies, which we ended up having to watch from the shore. As the sea was nice and warm, I actually really felt bad for them. The tide was still rising a little bit, so they did watch the stuff for us, which was nice.
Oh, you don't know, and you're clean.
Doesn't matter.
While we were trying to dry off, the tide kept coming in and we had to go and rescue the dinghy. I had found a boulder and used it as an anchor just in case this had happened. After we finished our drinks, we packed up and we headed back to the ship. We had a few more nightcaps with a little bit of music playing and then went to bed. It's Sunday morning and it's time to go. First up, we have to pull the anchor up. The black line is known as a snubber, which has a hook on the end and it's tied to a cleat, and what that does is it reduces the shock load to the windlass. It also helps reduce noise with the chain rubbing on the top side of the boat. The aim of the windlass is to pull up the anchor and the chain, not to pull the boat along, so we have the boat slightly on tick over and we're drifting forward a little bit to take away a lot of that tension. Mike has also marked his chain using a series of coloured cable ties. The anchor's coming now.
Okay, anchor's away.
My attempts to get everybody to quit their jobs so we can go sailing off into the sunset failed, so we ended up turning left and headed back to Cardiff. In the Bristol Channel, you're limited on the spaces you can go to, mostly by the weather and the tides. With the light winds behind us, we decided to throw up the sail just to see if it would give us a little bit of stability, but the wind speed was about the same speed as we were going, so it didn't really have any effect. So Captain Neil, what's your favourite part of the trip?
Oh, for me, it was after swimming, getting out, big roaring fire and just warming yourself by that fire, on the beach, nobody else around, just the friends. That's the best part of the trip.
What's your favourite part?
The Krakens.
The Krakens.
My favourite part of the weekend was the swimming.
And catching the fish, the only
And
fish.
I did catch the only fish, which everybody else fucking gobbled away. I should have sworn.
So my favourite part was defying the captain and bringing the coffee machine. It was the only rule, do not bring the coffee machine. And here in my hand is my coffee, and here in the other hand is Captain Mike's coffee made by the coffee machine. So defying the captain, it was either defiance or mutiny, so I went with defiance. Cheers.
Good coffee, Captain Mike.
With the full range of the tide on our side, we made it back in about 7 hours. The locks are allowing the water to flow in from the bay area into the locks in order to raise us up to the same level as the bay area. We were sharing the locks with this large red boat, which Mike managed to squeeze in between the pontoon and the boat. Credit where credit is due, he handled it very nicely.
Yeah,
Right. Hold on, I failed.
Rather than jumping off and slipping on pontoons or jumping on moving boats, we try and do everything from the deck itself. Thanks for sticking around and liking the video if you have. Welcome back if you're a subscriber, and welcome if you are new. The links for any of the products that I've used in the video are in the description below, but you've got the QR code at the top at no extra cost to you. But thanks for watching, thanks for being fans.